Let's talk about NXT Halloween Havoc, October 25th, 2025. We're also going to talk just a teeny tiny bit about the new class of wrestlers entering the Performance Center, but that will be near the end. So we're going to talk about Halloween Havoc. Really good show. Specifically, really good in the middle, believe it or not. I was very happy with the middle. The middle was not bad. The early parts and the later parts, okay, they were good, not incredible. For starters, love the fact that they did the Halloween theme. There was, the graveyard and everything. That was fun. Thank you, WWE, for at least keeping that going. Can't hate on them from that. I was ready to bury them for not following the Halloween thing, but they did it. I will bury them, however, for not giving us a full Laparca entrance. It was just Laparca. He did a little dance, and then Mr. Iguana came out. Okay. Booker T thinks that the Laparca in the ring in 2025 is a reincarnation or the same Laparca that he wrestled in WCW. Booker T is amazing, dog. He's fantastic. All right. I will say this. The match was Mr. Iguana silliness. I mean, it's fine for a popcorn match. They're not treating him like he's a main event guy or anything like that. He pops the crowd. He does silly stuff, and that's about it. But maybe it's fine in small doses. Guys like him, Danhausen, in smaller doses, they're okay. The silliness in this match is when he slapped both Javon Evans and Leon Slater with Leyeska. Did I even say who was in this match? It's Javon Evans and Leon Slater as a tag team versus Laparca and Mr. Iguana as a tag team. Anyway, Mr. Iguana slapped both Javon Evans and Leon Slater with Leyeska, the puppet. He hit him in the stomach first. He hit Javon Evans in the stomach, and then he slapped Leon Slater in the face with it. And it looked pretty brutal. He got hit in the face with that thing. Later in the match, there was a double springboard spot where Mr. Iguana jumped off the middle, the springboard off the middle of the far left side, while Javon Evans springboarded from front side near the left. And it looked like they were going to collide in midair. It looked like they might have been trying to do a spot where Javon Evans counters it and gives them a cutter out of thin air, but they both missed, and it made them both look ridiculous. This is what I mean by we don't need to do these spots sometimes. Sometimes these spots are not necessary. I did enjoy the springboard German suplex Javon Evans did, though. I thought that was pretty nice. The finish came, before I get to the finish, there was another spot where Mr. Iguana had the puppet, and it took center stage for Javon Evans and Leon Slater, and then Leon Slater just punched him in the face. He rose the puppet up like Undertaker. It was pretty ridiculous. Anyway, the finish came with the Swanton 450 on to Mr. Iguana, believe it or not, who took the pin. I was very surprised to see that. I was very surprised Mr. Iguana took the pin. So, I mean, it's okay. It was a fun match. I know it gave us the reason why this match was occurring later on. So, even though it didn't make sense going in, it did make sense before the show was over why this match happened. Now, it doesn't make sense why these two particular guys were the opponents, but why Javon Evans and Leon Slater were working as a tag team, it makes sense. Okay, Javon Evans did a sit down where he called himself the greatest champion in WWE, including Raw and SmackDown, and I can't disagree. Said he's on a historic title run, that El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. cost him a double title and then stalked him for months, which is very accurate. That's exactly how it occurred. Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. versus Ethan Page was very good. This was a surprisingly good match. Ethan Page has been on one hell of a run as a heel North American champion. He's been doing really good. This was much better than I expected. For the second match in a row, because the first match had a Paradise Lock too. I hate the Paradise Lock. If you don't know what it is, it's that move where random guy ties your arms and legs together, and then the guys are like on their stomach with their booty all up in the air. We went from having none of these moves ever happening in WWE. I don't remember anybody ever putting anybody in a Paradise Lock in WWE to it happening in back-to-back matches. That's insane. It's a Mexican thing, I guess. But anyway, it came from a drop kick to a chair by El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr. I saw Ethan Page put a chair in between the ropes, and then just run Dr. Wagner's head into it, which is pretty fun. And then they jammed the table leg into El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr.'s throat. Now, that spot, I always thought that spot was kind of vicious and should be saved for, big moments. I felt like it was kind of wasted here, considering there was so much match left. Maybe they could have left that part out. Anything that involves the throat, I'm not a big fan of you doing that in the middle of the match. The match really kicked into a second gear when Ethan Page ripped the mask. Now, usually mask rips happen in pretty much every lucha match, but it doesn't happen that often in WWE. So, and this was a great callback to the Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio Halloween Havoc match. And El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr. was dressed same color scheme as Rey Mysterio from that match. So when they ripped his mask, he was wearing face paint and stuff underneath, which was smart on his, because it kind of still obscured how he looked. But he started hulking up, because he's a bigger guy. So he started hulking up. And I thought, oh shit, he's about to win the fucking belt. So he starts going crazy after this. He hits a diving coast to coast. He kicks out of an Ego's Edge onto a trash can. He hits a double jump moonsault. I'm thinking Dr. Wagner Jr. is about to win this match. Legit, I'm like, man, he fucking pissed. They ripped his mask. He about to kill this dude. So they climb up to the top rope. There's a table sitting there, and Dr. Wagner Jr. is trying to do something to him off the top rope. Ethan Page slips away and throws some powder in his eyes or something like that. Gives him RKO off the top rope onto the table and wins the match. I gotta tell you, that was good. That was very good. This is all I really asked for when it comes to matches. They did a spot in the match where I started to think the momentum has shifted the other way. After the table leg into the throat, after, the chairs to the head and all this kind of stuff, where Ethan Page was beating his ass, ripping the mask took that match to the next level. Now this guy's pissed. He's, kicking out of his finish. He's coming like a freight train. He's hitting big moves. But it just wasn't enough. Ethan Page had just one more trick. And he managed to get away with it. And he won the match. I gotta tell you, I'm almost converted when it comes to Ethan Page. I'm almost converted when it comes to Dr. Wagner Jr. too. El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr., for God's sake. His name is way too many words. I was kind of surprised that this Day of the Dead match was just no disqualification. I thought it was going to be a little bit more to it, but they just dimmed the lights and it was no disqualification, which they should have learned from Sin Cara. Probably don't dim the lights, but it was still pretty good. And I was very impressed by both men. They did a good job. Match number 3, Mariah May defeats Zarya to win the women's North American title. Gotta say, it was kind of predictable. It was just kind of like, all right, so there. But the match itself was okay, despite the predictability of it. The match was about Zarya's shoulder, which they said was, it's separated. She's going to get counted out. She was in so much pain. Then Sol Ruka was just kind of like, I don't know what to do. And then she just shoved Zarya into the ring post. And it magically popped her shoulder back into place. Which I know was, That's a wrestling thing where you could just pop my shoulder back into place. Oh, it's so easy. It's not that easy in real life. Okay, it's not that easy. But here's the thing that really blew my mind. When she pushed Zarya into that ring post, it was right in front of the referee. The referee was sitting right there. So shouldn't the referee have disqualified her for that? Which, never mind, man. Look, never mind. I don't care. Anyway, following this, Mariah May countered the F5 into an armbar, which I thought was pretty sweet. The match built up okay until Mariah May started running around the ring. She ended up knocking Zarya down. I'm not Zarya, but she ended up knocking Sol Ruka down. She kicked away her crutch, and Sol Ruka went down. And as she was flopping around outside the ring, Zarya had the match won, but then, as usual, she was distracted by Sol Ruka. So she rolls outside the ring to see if Sol Ruka is okay. This allowed Mariah May to attack Zarya from behind and give her a DDT on the floor. Then threw her in the ring to give her another double arm DDT in the ring to pin her to win the match. So it was the right decision, but I'm not really a big fan of how we got there. Zarya is still a big old softy who was distracted by Sol Ruka being hurt. And clearly, it wasn't her title, so why should she give a shit? But I don't like this idea. And Sol Ruka was, of course, distraught that her championship was lost. Very sad times, I must say. Extremely sad times. But Mariah May being the champion is absolutely the right decision. It should have happened, but I think it's happening around the right time. It's been about 4 months. They weren't gonna give her the big belt yet, so this was fine. She's going to carry this championship quite well, and she should be champion for a really long time, actually. And I'm looking forward to this Zarya heel turn, which needs to happen. It needs to happen. If Zarya does not turn heel either this week or next week, I'm just going to have to give up, because this has been going on for way too long. She has been in NXT longer than Mariah May. And she has just been a blank slate, nothing special at all, period. I don't know. Look, I'm not saying she needs to attack Sol Ruka, even though I would prefer that. But something needs to happen to show that Zarya has had enough, that she's frustrated, and that it's time for a change. There needs to be a change in the direction of this character. It's an absolute must. It is imperative that something change with this character. All right, match number 4. Tatum Paxley defeats JC Jane to win the NXT Women's title, and everybody is overjoyed. Even me. I can't believe it. This is the benefit of emotional content. Earlier in the night, they did a sit-down promo where Izzy Dame said that the culling is going to be 100% behind Tatum Paxley, and they are her true family now, and they are going to make sure that Tatum Paxley is never left behind again. Unlike that loser, I'm just adding this part, unlike that loser Lyra Valkyria, who left Tatum Paxley and went to the main roster. Nobody's ever going to leave Tatum Paxley behind again. And that was a clear setup that something was going to happen in this match, I gotta say. Now, the match itself built very well. The crowd they were 100% behind Tatum Paxley. They were building stronger and stronger behind her as the match went on. Now, it's 2 heel factions, which again is a problem. And the crowd was kind of not really sure which direction they wanted to go in, even though they love Tatum. They didn't really want to cheer the culling. They were not really a big fan of the culling. And JC Jane hit some pretty big stuff here. They did the slingshot under the ring post thing. I'm not under the ring post, but under the ring. Under the ring, there's this iron thing that, of course, the iron foundation for the ring. And sometimes you'll see a guy, he'll do a slingshot and the chin, throat, or whatever of the performer will get jacked into that. They did that early in the match here, which again, I feel like is an injury angle or like a severe angle to give the heel a lot of control, but it didn't feel like it was enough. And then later on, JC Jane did a net breaker off the top rope, but they did something smart there by having Shawn Spears put Tatum Paxley's foot on the rope. See, you can do things like that. That maintains the credibility of the move and the match. Right? So, that it should have been over. And if you look at it, Tatum didn't kick out of it, but she survived it nonetheless. So I did like that. In the end, both the culling and fatal influence got ejected. After Shawn Spears put Tatum Paxley's foot on the ropes, Laney Reed jumped off, I don't know if it's the top rope or just the apron, onto the culling, and they all started yelling at each other, and the ref just threw everybody out. After that, the match hit a peak, because now it's just these two girls, and they're going in there, and they're doing their thing. Tatum Paxley hits a 450 splash on to JC Jane, and only gets only a 2 count. The culling starts coming back out. This is Shawn Spears and Nico Vance. They come back down the ramp after they've been ejected. All the referees and everybody's got their attention. Izzy Dame grabs the women's championship and slides in the ring. Tatum Paxley is standing there, and JC Jane is on the other side of the ring. So she's got the belt, and she goes running towards Tatum Paxley with the title. Tatum ducks it, and as she was swinging the belt, Tatum ducks it, and JC Jane belts Izzy Dame with the rolling encore, her discus forearm. And as Izzy Dame takes the bump, rolls out of the ring, JC Jane is like, what the hell was that? Tatum Paxley hits her finisher onto JC Jane. 1, 2, 3. She wins the match. The place is very excited. Everybody's very excited. There was also, the question of whether Izzy was trying to hit Tatum Paxley. Was she trying to prevent Tatum from winning? What's going on here? And I think that question muted the response a little bit. But overall, everybody got into it. It was absolutely the right move. I haven't seen anybody who watches NXT regularly say this is a bad move. Everybody likes this girl. This is emotional content. This is somebody who has been around for a long time. There's all sorts of highlights. I didn't know she had been around as long as she's been there. But she was been there for a really long time. Okay. Matter of fact, she had wrestled in TNA under the NXT banner. She has wrestled in Reality of Wrestling under the NXT banner. She has been there for a really long time. And I forgot it was also because she was injured for quite a while too. So people who have been fired from NXT is tweeting at her how happy they are. Like, she is one of those people that is an underdog, where the crowd loves her for that reason and the locker room loves her for that reason. So it's been a universal love fest for Tatum Paxley. And this was absolutely the right move, absolutely the right time to do it. It might not last that long. I don't think Tatum Paxley is going to be the champion for the foreseeable future. I don't think she's about to go on like a 200-day title run like JC Jane did. But this was absolutely necessary. This is striking while the iron is hot. They made this thing. I mean, it was so well done. She won the Battle Royal. Nobody was expecting her to win it. She comes across like a mid-card contender, but there's that rumbling underneath where everybody was ready for her to break through. And most people weren't paying attention. I certainly wasn't. I was looking at the people who had already broken through, the Lola Vices and the Jada Parkers and all of them. But that she might be a bigger babyface than they are is just muted because she wasn't put in that position. But now she's in it. I think we're going to see something major with Tatum Paxley. So this is a kudos to everybody involved. Not Triple H though, because I know this wasn't his idea. But everybody else, big thumbs up, right decision. After the show, after the main event rather, they start asking questions, about Tatum Paxley winning the title, and he asked Izzy Dane, "What were you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, no, it wasn't about me. It's about Tatum." And Shawn Spears and Nico Vance are all very excited. This is going to be something. They're about to turn on this girl. Okay? If maybe not Spears and Vance, maybe it's just going to be Izzy Dane turning on her, but that's the nature of the Tatum Paxley character. She has these friendships, and then they either abandon her or they turn on her. Like she got abandoned by the other members of Chemical X, with Shotzi and Priscilla Kelly, aka Gigi Dolan, and they left her, and Lyra Valkyria left her to go to Raw and SmackDown. Now Izzy Dane is going to betray her, and that's going to be something special. I'm looking forward to that, and that's why I don't think this title run is going to be very long. Either they're going to put it on Izzy as a way to get the belt off of Tatum, or they're going to have Izzy cost Tatum the title. One or the other, but I don't think she's going to be champion much longer. But we always have tonight. All right, in a broken rules match, which is basically TLC, without the hanging of the ladders, Dark State defeated the Woken Hardys, the Broken Hardys, and they sure were broken. Oh boy. Jeff Hardy had the Fiend face paint, which I thought was fantastic. Very well done, especially for Halloween. I like that. This match was okay. It had a hell of a finish, I can tell you that. The match itself was basically 4-on-2, where all 4 members of Dark State eventually got involved at some point. So the Hardys succumbed mostly to the numeric advantage of Dark State. It was okay. The Hardys put 2 non-legal members of Dark State through tables. The black guy, they're just calling him Sugar Man, because nobody remember what his name is. All they know is it got sugar in it. So they call him Sugar Man. And Jeff hit him in the head with a chair by accident. But he did hit him in the head with a chair on this show. So that was fine. Dark State broke up the Swanton pin. I was like, ooh, I had a bad feeling when that happened. Jeff missed a Swanton and landed through 2 tables. That was brutal. Ugh, that was brutal. Like, the Hardys were already, they move like claymation characters, man. Like, these guys are not really, they don't move that well. All right? Their motion is not motioning. Okay? So, they move like snails underwater. It's bad. But they're still the Hardys. They still have charisma and personality, and everybody still likes them. But it became pretty obvious what was going on at this point. After Jeff crashed through those 2 tables, Matt was alone trying to fight off Dark State by himself. He was getting hit with some pretty big moves. And then, Jeff eventually fought back in, and it wasn't enough. They did an elevated doomsday device, which is Jeff Hardy was on the shoulders of one member of Dark State who stood near the ropes. Another member of Dark State climbed a ladder, and then they did basically the heart attack, the finisher of the Heart Foundation, through a table, and Jeff Hardy was pinned, and the building was pissed. Pissed. Okay? Because nobody came to Halloween Havoc to see the Hardy Boys lose. Nobody came to see the Hardy Boys lose. My one thing I'll say is this should have happened before Paxley won the belt. That absolutely should have. I think the Hardys losing hurt the main event. I really do. I think it was kind of like, oh man, what the fuck are they doing? I think people knew the Hardys had to lose the belts back, but maybe didn't want to lose the belts back so soon. And, this version of the Hardy Boys has always been pretty protected. But when you saw the segment that followed after this, which is that Leon Slater and Javon Evans were kind of upset that the Hardys lost, And they said, the OG said they were going to handle it, and they, it's a numbers game. They couldn't handle it. Maybe we need to. I was like, I get it. I get it now. I see why they've been booking Javon Evans and Leon Slater as a tag team. I still hate that fucking finish at Bound for Glory. There's nothing they can say or do that's going to fix that. But I figured we'd get back here. So now Leon Slater and Javon Evans are going to chase Dark State for the tag team titles. That's not going to make Dark State interesting. That's not. But it's going to keep Leon Slater getting NXT bookings, so that's perfectly fine. I know he's happy about that. Main event time. Ricky Starks defeats Trick Williams with a spear and a tornado DDT. Very solid match. Both guys worked very hard. Something was missing. I think it was emotional investment. I think people were emotionally invested in the Tatum Paxley match. They were definitely emotionally invested in the Hardys. Not so much here. I think it was pretty academic that everybody thought Trick Williams was just there to lose. So they kind of got into it, but they didn't get into it. It felt very even until the very end. I got very frustrated. Ricky Starks was dancing on the ropes. He was doing, the Undertaker old school thing, and he's dancing on the ropes and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, what is he about to do? He jumps down and then does a Russian leg sweep. I was like, bruh, what did you do all that dancing for? If you weren't going to do nothing off the top rope or nothing off the ropes, not an axe handle, not a drop kick, not a clothesline, you jump down to do a Russian leg sweep? Bro, no, that's Bush League. We got, no, no, don't do that again. Don't do that again. Stop it. Anyway, Ricky Starks kicked out of a trick shot. It didn't even really, I don't know if the crowd bid on it. I didn't. I kind of figured he was going to kick out of that thing. And of course, he just wins with a spear and a DDT. They didn't do a big spot in this match. I don't think that set up that Trick was going to win. So I was a little taken out of it about that. Overall, though, it was a really good match. It just felt like a TV match, And I think that's pretty much the one strike he had against it. That it felt like it was a match for NXT television. It didn't feel like a pay-per-view main event. And a lot of that has to do with the lack of emotional content. So as a show, it was very good. Nothing sucked. Just certain things like the Zarya Mariah May thing was probably one of the weaker matches on the show. The opening match, high flying popcorn match, not much in the way of story, but Mr. Iguana popped the crowd, and obviously Javon Evans and Leon Slater playing with those guys popped the crowd, but not a necessarily must-watch match. However, Ethan Page, heel Dr. Wagner Jr. was tremendous. JC Jane and Tatum Paxley was also very good. And those two matches really set the standard for the show. I think the show was really good based off of those two matches. Everything else was just not bad, which is like Zarya versus Mariah May. That wasn't bad, but it wasn't like go out of your way to see it. And the Hardys versus Dark State was a pretty good garbage match, but I hate Dark State, so I don't care about Dark State, and even the Hardys can't make me care about Dark State. So there was ups and downs here, emotional roller coaster. Otherwise, a pretty good show. I enjoyed the show. So let's talk about some of the ancillary things that were announced on the show and some of the other things that occurred on the show. All right, so we got to see backstage segment from Kalani Jordan, who now has her own locker room. These are champ perks. She got kicked out of the NXT locker room last week, so now she's got her own locker room. And despite the fact that she's got her own locker room, and I put this all in quotations because it looks just like the NXT locker room, which is basically a set backstage they constructed. Jordan Grace just walked into Kalani Jordan's personal locker room, just walked right in. At this point, Kalani Jordan starts giving Jordynne Grace a whole bunch of guff. Jordynne Grace tells her, look, you tried this before, and it didn't get you anywhere. Basically, she's saying, you tried turning heel before, and it didn't work. It didn't stick. And Kalani Jordan's like, look, I got to go talk to Santino about my next opponent. And Jordynne Grace says, well, just so happens that I know Santino, as he's a good buddy of mine. And so Kalani Jordan says, oh, I see what this is. You're going to go back to your own comfort zone. But this championship has now been elevated by me. It means more than you could ever make it mean. And Jordynne Grace slapped Kalani Jordan. You take a whole lot of balls to walk in this girl's personal locker room, quote unquote, dressed like Velma from Scooby-Doo, and slap her in the face. That's something. And Kalani Jordan told her that she's going to regret that. Didn't look like she was going to. I mean, she could. You can make her regret it right now. But it's going to be a TNA Championship match this Tuesday. Almost guaranteed Jordynne Grace is not winning that match. They're probably going to do something to jerk Jordynne Grace out of that match. I'm guessing Kalani Jordan's going to get disqualified. That's my guess. Or she's going to get counted out or something. She's going to do some kind of weaselly thing to get out of it. But her being a heel because she willingly babyfaced and took TNA's side in the Survivor Series invasion thing is exactly what everybody wanted. Everybody wanted her to be a pariah in the NXT locker room because she fought against the NXT wrestlers. That's exactly what's happening now. And now her ego is out of control too. So it's a combination of things. It's a really good character development here. Jordynne Grace hasn't had much to do in NXT, and she's actually just kind of seemingly sitting around waiting for a main roster spot to open, which is actually the worst position for a talent to be in. Is I'm in NXT, but I'm just kind of waiting for a spot in the main roster because you never know when that's going to happen. But this match ought to be fun at the very least. The Ren QCC has been formed unofficially. Ren Sinclair was being very talkative to Charlie Dempsey, who is on, I guess, FaceTime or something like that, as she relays the story of Kendall Gray standing up for her at NXT the previous week. Kendall Gray stood up to Lash Legend. As she's telling this story, Lash Legend strolls up again. They get into it. Kendall Gray's like, look, we're not having this. Lash Legend's like, okay, I guess we're going to have a fight then. And Ren Sinclair then mistakenly says, oh, the title's not going to be on the line. And then Kendall Gray was like, well, guess it will be. And so Lash Legend is going to get an Evolve Women's Championship match. I think that's this week as well. I think on NXT. Alrighty then. So the reigning QCC is going to be Kendall Gray, Ren Sinclair, and Carmen Petrovich, which I gotta say, not a bad idea. Carmen Petrovich is a character that they use off and on. She fell into a ditch after they fired Ashanti the Adonis. They were doing an angle, the two of them, and I think that angle ended right before he got released, but she's kind of been in the negative zone ever since. I don't think she was hurt or anything like that, because she had popped up on Evolve for a little bit too, and it was weird because she was being used all the time, and then she got into that storyline with him, and then he got fired, and then she disappeared. And she was tweeting very vaguely too, and I thought she had gotten released because I hadn't seen her, and then all of her tweets were like really odd. But here she is. She's back, still doing a martial arts gimmick. I wonder if she's going to be carrying a sword still. I don't know. But Kendall Gray is a phenomenon. Everybody likes her, so they're going to throw her in there with Lash Legend. That ought to be fun. Lash Legend is one, of course, a talent that a lot of people have high hopes for. And much like Lola Vice and Jada Parker, it seems like there's been an unfair lid put on her growth. And now she's gonna have to lose to Kendall Gray. Kendall Gray, again, phenomenon. But Lash Legend wasn't too long ago where it looked like she was going to break through and become a big deal when they separated her from Jakara Jackson. But it ain't going nowhere. So I'm very interested in how that's going to shake out. Maybe it's going to be a disqualification. Can't have a bunch of disqualifications, so somebody's got to lose. But I don't know if having Lash Legend lose to Kendall Gray, man, that's kind of nasty. But I mean, it's necessary. Maybe they'll do something. Maybe they'll do something to get out of this. We'll see. But the Ren QCC sounds like fun. They're actually doing something with that girl now. She's been under contract for like a year. I'm talking about Ren Sinclair, and she ain't done a damn thing. She barely even wrestles. So I'm glad she's doing something. All right, they announced something that's extremely fun that I'm really looking forward to. For 2 weeks in November, they're going to do 2 Gold Rush episodes of NXT from New York City. That's going to feature every championship from AAA, Evolve, NXT, and TNA, all being defended over the course of those 2 weeks. So all 4 of the subsidiary brands of WWE, which I'm guessing might as well throw TNA in there as well, are all going to defend titles at that time. That's going to be big because they're going to be in the, not Madison Square Garden. They're going to be in the, like an adjoining room to Madison Square Garden. So it ought to be excellent. You know, just having I wonder if they're going to do like title for title kind of stuff, or are they really going to take time and build all of these championship matches? But this is what this means. Dominic Mysterio is probably going to wrestle in NXT one of those weeks to probably defend the Mega Championship. So that ought to be fun. I don't know who he's going to wrestle, but it ought to be fun. It ought to be fun. So that's going to be big. Hopefully Kendall Gray will still be there, so she's going to get to wrestle on that show too. Ricky Starks definitely. So it's going to be huge. They're going to really put some effort into these 2 weeks on NXT. They're like 2 weeks in late November. I think it's like I'll just say like the 20th or the 27th or something like that. But it's kind of like that. I'm not sure. But it ought to be a really big deal. They need to turn like this Gold Rush idea. I like it. Maybe turn it into a pay-per-view. Call it like, I don't know, Clash of the Champions. You know, but 2 weeks is good. That's 4 hours of content. So I like that they do special events for CW. You know, and I think Deadline is in December, which I think is the next PLE for NXT. So this is all perfectly fine. I like this. But what else? Okay, so Thea Hale. I forgot. Thea Hale actually wrestled on Evolve this week. A lot of people were upset about that because they're like, Thea Hale, man, she has such potential. She is such a firecracker. What the hell happened? She went from being a championship contender when Tiffany Stratton was there to now they just sent her down to Evolve. What's going on here? And they think she's in the dead zone because she's never going to come back. I've never seen anybody go to Evolve and come back bigger. I can tell you that. But she's like 21 or 22 or something like that. And they have been piling on the female talent. And she's, ever since Chase University has been gone, she's been kind of generic, looking for an identity. So going to Evolve to find something, I don't have a problem with that. I don't necessarily have an issue with, Nikita Lyons and Thea Hale going to Evolve. I mean, they got all of these people that some of them have NXT TV equity. Send them to Evolve. Why not? Especially if they're still young. It would be one thing like when Natalya was in Evolve. Like, that was nuts. They should never have done that. Or when Lindsay Dorado was in Evolve. But take somebody like Nikita Lyons down there. Sure. Send somebody like a Jada Parker or a Lash Legend down there every once in a while. It's not a demotion because it's part of the NXT system. They're just working with the B team. That's it. It's like being on the practice squad. You're not putting on pads. Like you're not going down there to bleed and take up a whole lot of space. But there are certain people that I think if they were sent to Evolve, it might be an issue. And I think Wendy Chu is one of them. They're about to change her whole character in Evolve. They're about to do like an exorcism or like a psychiatry or some psychiatrist or something like that. They're about to change her whole fucking gimmick. They got her talking now and everything. I'm doing weird stuff down there. But I watch Evolve. I have fun with it. I'm one of those odd people that I have fun watching Evolve and NXT, watching young talent grow. There's only so many Randy Orton matches you can fucking watch, dog. You know, I've been watching Randy Orton matches for a long time, John Cena matches, CM Punk matches. I want to see other people sometimes. So, seeing the people who could one day go from being low-level guys on NXT to being top roster guys, I'm looking forward to that. And that's what makes people so happy to see somebody like Tatum Paxley finally make it. Even though this is probably going to be the pinnacle of her career, I don't think she goes to the main roster and wins a world title. So I think this might be the pinnacle of what she can do. But it's still fulfilling. And that fulfillment is part of the reason why people watch wrestling. People watch wrestling because you don't have dumb shit like, oh, he poked me in the eye so the fight is over. Or you don't have some fucking scheme where guys are shaving points or, you know, people are throwing fights or anything like that. It's, you know what it is when you watch it. And it can give you the dramatic action, comedy, the whole nine. That's why I watch wrestling. You know, it's an illusion of a sport, but now not even an illusion because everybody knows what it is. So I have fun with that. I don't know how I got on that subject. I kind of got on a rant about that stupid UFC fight where Cyril Gane dug in Tom Aspinall's eyes. I really don't watch modern UFC. All right, there was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah. So they have a new class of guys from the Performance Center. Almost all of them are from Europe. So take that for what you will. But one of them is a guy I actually know. His name was Eagle Blanc, or White Eagle. He was a white luchador. He wrestled in like Progress and stuff like this. There's been a whole lot of excitement about him. They took his mask off though. Hopefully they put his mask back on because he looks like Matt Riddle. So hope they put the mask back on him. But he was pretty solid. You know, he wasn't the best guy. When I used to watch the European stuff, when it was up on the network, I would just like have it on, especially during the pandemic and everything. I had like so much time to watch TV. I would just let that stuff play while I read. That's how I watch a lot of wrestling, by the way. You know, people are like, you sit down and watch all of that stuff. I mostly just leave the shit on while I'm like right now, as I'm recording this, I let MLW play in the background. So I'm kind of looking at the screen while I'm talking. So I don't give like my full undivided attention. Anyway, a lot of people have noted that this guy is going to be a big deal if given the opportunity. I don't even know if he speaks English, to be quite honest. He's French, if I remember correctly. But I think all of the guys are European. But I'm not sure if any of them speak good English. There's another guy, Mike DeVecchio. I've seen him before. I'm not that familiar with him, but I know him. So they went over to Europe for tryouts. I don't remember when that was. It was earlier this year. And they signed a bunch of people from over there, and these are the people now. So these guys are going to be integrated into NXT soon. So expect an exodus of talent. Like everybody's expecting Obafemi to leave and Trick Williams and some other people. Maybe even JC Jane and all of them. Now, they only announced the men. They haven't announced the women yet. And so it's probably going to be over the next couple of days where they're going to announce all the women they're going to bring in to NXT that they signed over in Europe. So it ought to be an interesting time. Some of these guys are still very young. I think that the White Eagle, I'm just going to call him White Eagle. I think he's like 26 or something like that. So he's not an older guy. Now, none of these guys are the kind of guys I want to see because they're in good shape, but none of them are like big jacked dudes, you know. That's my problem. You know, like my problem is I want wrestlers that look like wrestlers, and these guys they look like fitness coaches who get into wrestling. You know, like guys who might bodybuild a little bit. They might just be regular gym rats. They get into wrestling. So there's a lot of interesting things, you know, going on in NXT right now. They got a new class. You know, we got new champions. There's about to be a changing of the guard in terms of the roster and everything. So buckle up if you're a fan of NXT. It's about to be an interesting time. All right. In closing, let's talk about food. What was the menu? All right. I got a little out of control. I had nachos and tacos, which was definitely too much. Way too much dairy. Mouth, everything starting to dry up. I've been pushing through drinking water, but I don't think it's going to be enough because of the dairy. Now, if you didn't know that, dairy does dry you out. So sour cream has dairy in it and cheese has dairy in it, and I had way too much of both of those things. I made my nachos with both turkey and beef as a way to prolong the beef. I spent a whole lot of money on that beef, so I was like, all right, I don't have a whole lot of money, so let's mix it with some turkey. That way I can at least have hamburgers or something like that later this week. So I made that. I got some pico de gallo because I'm not a big fan of salsa. Don't ask me what's the difference. I prefer pico de gallo because it's raw vegetables, even though it's the same thing with the onions and the peppers and all that, tomatoes. I just don't like salsa. It oozes, so I don't like it. But I do like pico de gallo. So soft shell tacos, and I do plain nachos. I don't do Doritos. The reason I stopped doing Doritos is because Doritos are already seasoned. Like the regular nacho chips are already seasoned too, but it's just salt. Doritos has all kind of shit in it, right? So I gotta be healthy somewhere. I gotta cut some corners. All right. I'm not trying to get myself a heart attack. And I do soft shell tacos. Almost exclusively eat soft shell tacos. You warm them up a little bit, but they still fall apart on you. Maybe just because they were cheap. I got them from Aldi's. So the taco nacho plate, it hit. It did make me tired. It did make me sleepy. If it was a longer show, like an AEW show or something like that, I might not have made it. But as an NXT show, breezed right through. Perfect combination, especially for that first match. I could just sit back and eat and have fun. I even drank a little bit of pop, which I usually don't do. But I made some rice too, like some chicken rice to go with it. No hard vegetables, like no salad or anything like that, which I normally do with like heavy meals like this. I decided just gonna eat light tomorrow. So I went hard, a little too hard. And that's probably another reason why I was probably very happy about the show, is because I wasn't starving. So I usually don't eat that late either. I do intermittent fasting. I eat between 11 and 7. Today, because I had to go to the store, I didn't actually start cooking until 6:30. So the food was just getting done at 7. So it's like just in time for the show. So I definitely broke a bunch of rules for dieting and anything. So don't take no dietary advice from me. All right. Please don't. Anyway, thank you guys for your time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully you guys are continued to be blessed. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression. Regression. The best don't